Welcome to ASRM Today, a podcast that takes a deeper dive into the current topics in reproductive medicine.
Welcome to ASRM Today. I'm your host, Jeffrey Hayes, and today we're diving into a topic that affects every single one of us: genetics in agriculture. How do scientists use genetic modification to improve crops? What role does selective breeding play in producing stronger livestock? What does the future hold for genetically engineered foods? And how does it all affect or influence reproductive medicine? We'll break down the science, explore the controversies, and take a look at genetics through this particular lens. The idea of using genetics to improve agriculture isn't new. Farmers have been selectively breeding plants and animals for thousands of years. Think about it. Early humans didn't have access to genetic engineering, but they noticed that some crops grew better than others and some animals were stronger or produced more milk. Take corn, for example. Wild corn looked nothing like the big juicy ears we eat today. Ancient farmers in Central America selectively bred plants with larger, more edible kernels, eventually transforming wild corn into the corn we know today. The same is true for livestock. Once wild cattle were domesticated and selectively bred to produce more meat and milk. But while selective breeding is a slow process, modern genetic tools have supercharged the way we improve crops and animals. And that's where genetically modified organisms, or GMOs, come in. When people hear GMO, they often think of lab-created foods. But what exactly is a genetically modified organism? GMOs are organisms whose DNA has been altered using biotechnology. Scientists can insert genes from one species into another to give it beneficial traits, like resistance to pests or the ability to grow in harsh conditions. One great example is golden rice, which has been engineered to produce beta-carotene, a precursor to vitamin A. This rice was developed to help combat vitamin A deficiency, which can lead to blindness and immune system issues in children. But GMOs aren't just about plants. Scientists are also using genetic tools to improve livestock. Agricultural genetics is a broad field that encompasses the study and application of genetic principles to improve crops, livestock, and overall agricultural productivity. While CRISPR-Cas9 is a revolutionary tool with agricultural genetics, the field itself predates CRISPR and includes various other genetic techniques, such as traditional breeding, hybridization, and earlier forms of genetic modifications, or GMOs. CRISPR-Cas9 is a powerful gene editing technology that allows scientists to make precise changes to the DNA of plants and animals. It has significantly advanced agricultural genetics by enabling the rapid development of crops with desirable traits, such as drought and heat resistance to withstand climate change, disease resistant to reduce pesticide and antibiotic use, higher nutritional value to combat malnutrition, faster growing and higher yield crops for food security. However, agricultural genetics is not limited to CRISPR. Other genetic tools, such as marker-assisted breeding, RNA interference, or RNAi, and synthetic biology, also play crucial roles in enhancing agricultural productivity and sustainability. But genetic advancements don't stop at things like disease resistance. Researchers are also working on lab-grown meat, which involves growing animal cells in a controlled environment to produce real meat without raising livestock. Could lab-grown meat be the future of sustainable food? How does agricultural genetics affect reproductive medicine? Surprisingly, in several ways, primarily through technological advancements, genetic research, and ethical considerations. Here's how. In genetic engineering and assisted reproduction, techniques used in agricultural genetics, such as selective breeding, artificial insemination, and embryo transfer, have informed and improved human reproductive medicine. In vitro fertilization, or IVF, and pre-implantation genetic diagnosis, or PGD, were influenced by reproductive techniques developed in livestock. For CRISPR and gene editing, genetic modification in crops and livestock has paved the way for gene editing in human embryos to eliminate genetic diseases. CRISPR, initially refined in plants and animals, is now being explored in human reproductive medicine to correct hereditary conditions. In the area of epigenetics and fertility, studies on plants and animals have provided insights into how environmental factors affect gene expression, influencing fertility treatments. This research helps understand infertility causes and improve embryo viability in humans. In the area of cloning and stem cell research, cloning techniques in livestock like Dolly the sheep have driven advancements in therapeutic cloning and stem cell research for reproductive medicine. These techniques offer potential treatments for infertility and genetic disorders. In the area of ethical and regulatory considerations, agricultural genetics has raised bioethical concerns, which also apply to human genetic modification and designer babies. Understanding public perception and regulations in agriculture helps guide policies in human reproductive medicine. The future of agricultural genetics promises a more resilient, productive, and sustainable food system. As technology continues to evolve, a balanced approach that integrates genetic engineering, traditional breeding, and ecological farming practices will be essential to feeding the world while protecting the planet. That's a wrap on today's episode. We explored how genetics is shaping agriculture, from ancient selective breeding to cutting-edge CRISPR technology, and how it is affecting reproductive medicine. Whether you support GMOs or prefer organic farming, one thing is clear: genetics is revolutionizing how we grow food. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with your friends. Until next time, I'm Jeffrey Hayes, and this is ASRM Today.
This concludes this episode of ASRM Today. For show notes, author information, and discussions, go to asrmtoday.org. This material is copyrighted by the American Society for Reproductive Medicine and may not be reproduced or used without express consent from ASRM. ASRM Today series podcasts are supported in part by the ASRM Corporate Member Council.
The information and opinions expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect those of ASRM and its affiliates. These are provided as a source of general information and are not a substitute for consultation with a physician.